Judas Iscariot. The name itself feels heavy. It is synonymous with betrayal, but was it always that way? He walked with Jesus. He shared meals. He witnessed miracles, the blind seeing, the dead rising. For 3 years, Judas was there. He was one of the 12. But doubt, it has a way of creeping in. Maybe it was jealousy, maybe disappointment. Maybe he expected Jesus to be a conquering king, not a servant washing feet. Did Judas ever wonder if he was wrong? Did he lie awake at night, questioning his choices? Or was he too far gone to see another way? Judas wasn't born a betrayer. He was human, just like us. How do you look at someone who will betray you? Not with anger, not with fear, but with love. Judas wasn't a stranger to Jesus. He was chosen, known, loved. Even as his heart drifted, Jesus saw him, not just as a betrayer, but as a man, a soul. Did Judas feel it? The weight of that love? Did he know that Jesus washed his feet, knowing they'd carry him to the priests? That Jesus shared bread, knowing it would lead to a kiss of betrayal? And yet Jesus never turned away. He loved Judas to the very end, because that's who he is. To see Judas through the eyes of Jesus is to understand grace. 30 pieces of silver. It doesn't sound like much, but to Judas, it was enough. They didn't force him, he reached for it. His own hand closed around the bag. Was it greed, desperation, or something darker? Did he tell himself it was justified, that he needed it, that Jesus would understand? But the coins weren't just money. They were a symbol, a choice, a betrayal that would echo through history. 30 pieces of silver. What's your price? He was one of them, handpicked by Jesus, trusted, included, and yet, somehow, always apart. What did they think of him? Did they notice his distance? The way he slipped away when the others leaned in? Did they suspect him? Or did they trust him completely, never imagining what was brewing in his heart? Betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from those close enough to trust, close enough to hurt. What happens when the one who betrays you is the one who once walked beside you? He wanted freedom. He wanted a Messiah who would conquer, not serve. A king, not a carpenter. Judas believed Jesus was the answer. But what if Jesus didn't meet his expectations? What if the kingdom Judas dreamed of wasn't the one Jesus came to build? Was Judas trying to force Jesus' hand, to push him into a confrontation that would reveal his power? Or was it something else? Frustration, disappointment, doubt? Maybe it wasn't about money. Maybe it was about control, about forcing Jesus to become the king Judas wanted. What happens when we try to fit God's plan into our own? The weight of betrayal is heavy, and for Judas, it was unbearable. "I betrayed innocent blood," he said, but they didn't care. The damage was done. Did he regret the act or just the consequences? Could he have turned back? Would Jesus have forgiven him if he'd asked? Peter denied Jesus 3 times, but he found redemption. Judas never asked for it. Grace was there, but Judas couldn't see it. It was written, the Messiah would be betrayed by one close to him, 30 pieces of silver, a kiss of betrayal. But did Judas know? Did he see himself in the words of the prophets? Or was he just another man making choices that aligned with God's plan? Was Judas a pawn, fulfilling a destiny beyond his control? Or was his betrayal the result of free will, a choice with eternal consequences? One man's betrayal, a prophecy fulfilled, but also when the door to salvation opened. Prophecy isn't fate, it's God's plan, woven through human choice. Regret, it's a weight that presses down, making every breath harder. Judas felt it, Peter felt it, but their roads led to very different places. Peter denied Jesus 3 times and the shame nearly crushed him, but he turned back. He sought forgiveness and found it. Judas tried to undo the betrayal. He tried to escape the weight of what he'd done, but he didn't turn to Jesus. He turned to despair. 2 men, 2 betrayals, 2 roads. One led to grace. The other ended in tragedy. Regret doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of redemption. Judas Iscariot. His name feels distant. his story, ancient. But what if it's not? What if Judas isn't just a figure from history? What if he's a reflection of us? Like Judas, we've all made choices we regret. We've all betrayed love for something lesser. But the question isn't if we'll stumble. The question is, what will we do next? Judas reminds us of our weakness, but more importantly, he reminds us of God's grace. If we choose to seek it,